June 19th, 1865. Place, Galveston, Texas. What's happening? The last of African American slaves are finally being set free. Free of the bondage, free of the tyranny, free of the whiplashes from their masters, free from giving free labor. Now free to dream. Freedom they finally get to touch, to smell. Free to build a future for their family, their loved ones, their mothers, their children, fathers, brothers, sisters. They receive something that they only could wish for and dream for. Something they only could pray for. Freedom. Something that we never thought we would see. As we celebrate Juneteenth this year, we can't help but recognize the social consciousness. The social consciousness of not just the people, but around the world. How people are coming together to march, to protest against social injustice, injustice by a police department, unjustifiable killings by a police department, the injustice of racism, and that we, as Black Americans, deserve equality. As we celebrate today, we see companies such as Amazon, Facebook, just to name a few, actually speak up, stand behind the Black Lives Matter, speak against social injustice, police brutality, speak up on our behalf, speak on how we need equality and the end to this nasty disease called racism. As we celebrate June this year, we also celebrate the rebirth, the resurrection of social consciousness, and hopefully a path to us finally feeling free. But how did we become free? Was it Emancipation Proclamation? Or was it the 13th Amendment? We're going too far, aren't we? So in order to really understand Juneteenth and where we are today, we have to go to our past. Don't worry, people, cover your ears. We're about to talk about history. So hurry up, cover your ears. Back in Africa, rival tribesmen, rival kings of tribes, leaders of tribes, helped capture other tribes' people in order to sell them into slavery. Sell them to slavery to come to a new land. Help them trap slaves. Selling them to a new land where they would be hoisted on a stage, sold off like cattle to the highest bidder, forced to work as free labor, forced to be no longer a person, forced to lose their identity, forced to become property. This was a lot of our ancestors' realization. So many of our ancestors died in the bowels of a boat, chained in gruesome, hideous situations. Not understand where they're going or what's going to happen when they get there. Some of our ancestors chose death over enslavement, over forced-free labor. Then some of our ancestors fought for what they believed would become freedom. George Washington, America's first president in the Revolutionary War against the British, didn't want to let black soldiers fight in the army, in the Revolutionary Army. It wasn't until the British offered black slaves and black free people that if you fought on the side of the British in the Revolutionary War, that they promised our freedom. Well, it wasn't the first time we were promised something, were we? Was it? Was it the first? It wouldn't be the last. George Washington recognized this opportunity, allowed black people to fight in the Revolutionary Army on the side of the 13 colonies. The 13 colonies that all had slaves. Of course, you know the history, people. America won the Revolutionary War, creating what we now know as the United States. Later on, Lincoln would become president, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And at the same time, the Civil War was breaking out, where the South were fighting to keep their slaves. And why wouldn't they? The South was big on cotton gin, which was huge profits. Peach farms, huge profits. They wanted to keep their free labor. They wanted to keep their free slaves. So it was known as the Confederate Army fought to keep things intact, to keep America the way it was, to keep the America great that they liked. where the North Army, known as the Union Army, fought on the opposite side, fighting to free slaves. The fighting began. African American slaves fought on the side of the Union Army with the promise that when the Union Army won the Civil War, that we would be promised 40 acres and mule, along with our freedom. Did we receive our 40 acres and mule, people? No. In actuality, our 40 acres and mule went to the former slave masters as reparations for losing their slaves. So despite the fact that African Americans fought in the Civil War, fought for their freedom, fought for the opportunity to not only have equality, but have a place to live in, an opportunity to build a future for them and their children, they were once again lied to, misled, and mistreated. But this is a pattern that went through history, that vibrated through history and through the years, through time. And it brings us to now, when we talk about social injustice. The Emancipation Proclamation was a document drew up by President Lincoln, but it was the 13th Amendment which truly gave African Americans their freedom. But when we talk about freedom, we have to understand that's the small print that you have to look into. And if you look into the small print, the 13th Amendment, which you'll read it, you're no longer free once you become a prisoner. And as we all know, without going to all statistics, the prisons are made up mostly of African Americans. A lot of times we're wrongfully accused or forced into jail for minor crimes. Though weed is legal right now, or marijuana is legal right now, so many of us are sitting in prison right now for the sale of marijuana. And in prison, once you become a prisoner, according to the 13th Amendment, you are free to become a slave. I mean, just imagine it for a second, people. Just imagine it for a second. As we talk about our independence. You go to prison, you earn an education, earn a degree, computer science. You learn a new craft, a new skill, something that you're not taught in schools anymore. And you're forced to put that labor into companies like IBM, like Victoria's Secret, like Levi Jeans, where you're creating these items, and these items that make so much money. You become a computer programmer from prison, but you're only getting 13 cents or 30 cents an hour. Where on the outside, you'll get $30 an hour or more. But just imagine this. You get this computer degree, and you figure once you get released from prison, this degree may actually pay off. But the reality is, IBM and these large companies are not going to hire a convicted felon. Free labor. As we celebrate our freedom, we truly don't understand what it means to be free, do we? But we have to dig into our history even deeper. There's so many people say that protest doesn't work. Protest doesn't work. But I look at Rosa Parks and the bus boycott, where the organization that they came up with, as they worked together, they band together to fight back against being forced to sit in the back of a bus or forced to stand when a white person came to sit and there was no seats. But the Rosa Parks and the bus boycott to stand up and fight back brought the bus industry to its knees, forced them to the table and create legislation to change so that we were equally able to sit on a bus. Something that we take for granted every single day. We talk about Martin Luther King often on this show, people. We talk about, in Black History Month, they constantly talk about, I got the dream. I had a dream speech. But don't talk about the Poor Man's March. Don't talk about the March on Selma. So much of Martin Luther King's legacy is buried under the I had a dream speech. We talk about Malcolm X often, and by any means necessary, but often we don't talk about Malcolm X's how he transferred over time, how he grew. His transformation was so clear. His message and what he truly fought for. See, these people understood that the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment, didn't truly guarantee that we're free. The Civil Rights Movement proved there was still work that needed to be done. And thanks to our ancestors that continue to fight on, who protested us not being able to sit at diners or eat at restaurants, but those of our ancestors that protested and fought for us to go into be segregated in school, that fought back against Jim Crow laws, risked their lives to sometime fight for freedom that they would never receive. It's important that on the month of Juneteenth that we support and recognize the independence of all Black Americans, but also understand our history, recognize and support our history, appreciate what was done before. And today, I'm proud to say we are doing just that. As we're banding together to protest, speak up about the fact that Black Lives Matter, while other voices try to drown it out with all lives matter, which is, we understand clearly. We understand clearly that all lives matter. But we have to ask, does your statement that all lives matter hold water when Black people are unjustifiably killed by police without any criminalization for those police? We ask ourselves as we celebrate Juneteenth, what more needs to be done to secure our true independence, our true freedom? What more needs to be done from us to support and encourage freedom for our children, that they can walk to school, go to the store. Your husbands can go to the store, drive their car, get pulled over, and don't worry about having to become another murder. People can sleep in their houses without being shot and killed. We can create generational wealth for ourselves without our city being burned down. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Black Wall Street, people. We're tired of protesting. We're tired of speaking. Not because our feet are tired, not because we're physically fatigued, but mentally fatigued. Because we're constantly asking, fighting for our independence, for our freedom, for equality. But our cries keep falling on deaf ears. I'm encouraging you, people. I'm encouraging you to continue to fight on. Continue to fight on for social justice. Continue to fight on for not only your freedom, but your children's freedom. That they can live their lives without the freedom of worrying about being murdered or killed. As we celebrate Juneteenth, we have to remember and celebrate our ancestors that fought in not just wars, but in the streets, who marched, who organized, who put their lives at risk when times in America were so dangerous. To fight for us to sit and stand, for us to get the education, for us to vote, for us to have the privilege that we have today. It's important to us that we celebrate and understand what Juneteenth is. Understand that June 19th, 1865, Galveston, Texas, was the place where the last African-American slaves were finally free. 200 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, it took 200 years to free us. And we asked constantly a question. I've been asked this question. I'm pretty sure if you're African American right now, you've been asked this question. Why do you continue to argue and fight over something that happened hundreds of years ago? Slavery was hundreds of years ago, and you weren't slaves. Your ancestors were slaves, but you never were a slave. So why are you still trying to fight? Why are you still angry about it? Why are you still upset by it? Why are you still asking for reparations for something that happened so long ago? Let's answer that question, people. Let's talk about it. Because the vibrations, the whips, the lashes of slavery are still felt. But not only me, but our children. We were set so far back that we're still trying to catch up. Educationally, we were not allowed to learn, we were not allowed to read, not allowed to write. Look at how long it took us to truly vote, for us to finally have a voice. You talk about something that happened 300 years ago, I'm talking about how there's a 300-year gap between us and you. Think about that in the context of a race. If I gave you a 300-year head start, how much further ahead you would be than me? You may look and say, well, black wealth have been created. There are people who create black wealth right now. There are people who create opportunities and things for themselves. You say you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, but opportunities are far in between. Opportunities to create wealth. A lot of times we're denied not because of our credit, not because we don't have a good business plan, but honestly, it's because we're not the right color, not the right race. This is harsh words and words that you choose not to believe or truly not to acknowledge. But on today, with the march for social injustice, for change, this is a time for you to listen to understand that this is not a theory that we came up with. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is real life and truth. And you're finally getting to see through the eyes of a black person and through the experiences of a black person. We see the movement of statues, the removal of statues, removal of Confederate flags. The most surprising thing I've seen was NASCAR banning Confederate flags, pissing off their audience who are made up of people who support the Confederate Army or support those type of theories or mindset. And if you don't know the history of NASCAR, NASCAR was created through Prohibition years. That's right. Gangsters through the Prohibition used to have to build fast cars to outrun the police. Eventually, these same gangsters used to meet up on the beach and race to see whose car was faster. Eventually, this racing has become NASCAR. In the southern states, NASCAR is huge. NASCAR's fan base is predominantly white. But NASCAR took a huge step, banning the Confederate flag. Other companies, Amazon, talks about Black Lives Matter, but I can't help but think, where was these cries when Trayvon Martin got killed? Mike Brown. And I know some people are going to say to me, well, appreciate that they're crying out for it now. And I do appreciate that you're speaking up now. I appreciate that you finally woke up and that you see what's going on now. I appreciate during Juneteenth that we're having these kind of conversations and that we have so many huge companies that have so much influence speaking up on behalf of black people in the need, in the push against racism, the push for equality. But what I have to ask is, when are you going to use your voice to push for legislation change? When are you going to use your voice to push for absolute change? And I don't mean just the change in people's thoughts, but the change in laws. To not only protect black people, but to protect the good police officers that you talk about, the police officers that want to speak up and speak out and put an end to the brutality that their counterparts are doing. What about legislation to protect good police officers who want to speak up? What about protecting these black people who are being hunted down and killed? Sometimes on camera, sometimes in their own home, sometimes at a traffic stop. Not getting their just due. When are we going to create legislation to support true change? We need big companies to use your voice, use your platform to speak up if you really are against racism, social injustice, injustice through the police department, police brutality, and speak up. And use your voice to speak up on Capitol Hill. Speak up to the politicians that you support to make true change in this country. Show that this country is truly turned the corner and ready to make a difference and create legislations that protect the police officers who are doing good, who want to do good, protect black people who are out here in danger every single day. We need to see legislation change because only then can we truly see and feel that we're safe in our own communities, in our own homes. Right now, you probably do have good police officers. You always hear that. There's good cops out here. But we look around like, well, where are they going to speak up? Where are they at? When are they going to speak up? When are they going to talk about it? When are they going to speak out about this police brutality in their people in the police department who are killing these bad officers? And then you have to understand that if they do speak up, what's left for them? We know. Become pariahs. They get fired. You ever heard the story of Serpico? Once you watch the movie Serpico, officer during a time where there was so much police corruption that chose to speak up. How he became an outcast in the police department. Check out the story. So we need legislation to support officers so they feel more comfortable with speaking out about these negative officers when they commit crimes that are not caught on camera. When they're choking people out, beating up black people, shooting black people, and it's not caught on camera. We need legislation to support good officers that can speak up and feel protected when they speak up against these negative officers. We need legislation that supports us being protected against these crimes, that we do get our just due in court. We do get the same opportunity to have the right to justify and speak up on our behalf and give a chance to go to court and prove our own innocence, because in the court law, it's innocent until proven guilty. Give us our opportunity to prove our own innocence instead of being killed for simple infractions like allegedly passing a fake $20 bill or sleeping in a car at a drive-thru or a simple traffic stop or walking the streets with Arizona tea and some Skittles. Give us true legislation change, see, because it wasn't until the 13th Amendment, the Emancipation Proclamation, that we actually became free. So we know, and tell us on paper, can we truly feel equal? Can we truly feel safe in the country that we fought for? It's interesting we talk about wars, because we talk often about Colin Kaepernick, and people love to say how Colin Kaepernick disrespected the flag, and by kneeling, he disrespected the flag. And this is interesting on several points. Because peacefully protesting is protected by the flag, protected by the very military who fight for this country. We have the right to peacefully protest. And what's more American than that? They have the right to peacefully protest. Were you disrespecting the flag when you were marching and fighting against the Vietnam War? Were you disrespecting the flag then? Were you disrespecting America when you fought against our children being forced to fight a war that had nothing to do with America? Were you disrespecting the flag then? We talk about disrespect the flag. You often talk about, people talk about how their ancestors, their fathers, their grandparents fought in the World War II, fought in World War I, as if African Americans didn't fight in those wars. Because as I started the show saying, slaves, even when we weren't free, fought in the Revolutionary War. Slaves, when we weren't free, fought in the Civil War. Black people, even though we didn't have equal rights, even though segregation still existed, where our children could not go to certain schools, we could not eat at certain counters, drink from certain water fountains, stay at certain hotels, even go to hospitals when we were sick, fought in wars, in the midst of fighting the civil rights. I mean, think about it, people. There were black people who fought and sometimes were the front line of world wars, 1 and 2. There were black people who fought in segregated units of the Korean War, the Vietnam War. We fought. And when we came home, unlike our white counterparts, we didn't come to equality. We didn't come home to a hero's welcome. We didn't come home to be able to eat at any restaurant we want. We didn't come home to a huge celebration. We came back home after fighting for freedom for others to not receive freedom ourselves. I can yell this to the hills and you're still not hearing me though. When you talk about Colin Kaepernick disrespecting the flag, it still brings to me, as I hear so many NFL players speak up right now. They speak up against social injustice, the injustice of black people getting killed. They speak up and they stand up for Colin Kaepernick now. I wonder where were all those voices at when Colin Kaepernick knelt alone, when he stood alone, when he was banned from the NFL. Where were all of the messages? Where was the PSA to fight for what Colin Kaepernick stood for? But all the basketball players talk about, well, we don't want to play because we don't want to be a distraction. Where was the backing for Colin Kaepernick when he knelt to fight the very thing that we all are fighting for now? Where was all the major companies standing up for equality? Where were they then? When the president was saying fire all these black athletes who chose to kneel to protest? Where was the outcry when Mike Brown died, for Trayvon Martin? Now you may say, well, it's an outcry now, and people are standing up and they're fighting now, and we appreciate everybody, and I'm not trying to downplay where we are today, because maybe it takes a little longer for people to finally wake up. That's not my fear. That's not my worry. My worry is that this just doesn't become a trend. Something that's a trend where today this sounds cool to wear these shirts. This year it sounds cool to celebrate Juneteenth. This year it sounds cool to stand up and fight for social injustice. It sounds cool to speak up and to protest. But once it stopped being a news cycle, that we stop fighting with nothing being changed. We have to continue on, people, in all races, all places, all genders, all places in the world, to keep fighting for this social injustice. We have to fight for legislation to change so that we feel safe. We can't stop with statues. It's important that these statues should be removed. But hell, they should never have been up anyway. I mean, let's think about it. People talk about the Confederate flag as a part of history. Well, in Germany, the Nazi flag is a part of their history, good or bad. In Russia, the Soviet Union flag is part of history, good or bad. Stalingrad, I believe, is now named St. Petersburg, or is that Leningrad is now named St. Petersburg. They don't even keep those same names. The Nazi flag is banned from flying anywhere in Germany. So please, riddle me this, people. Why is the Confederate flag flying on top of a state building in places like South Carolina, in Virginia? Why is the Confederate flag flying over and so celebrated as a part of history in this country when it celebrates very negativity of this country? It celebrates a rebellion and treason in this very country. For the people who fought on the Confederate Army, they were committing treason by fighting against the government. But we celebrate these people as though heroes, as a part of history. But in the history book, we don't talk about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We don't teach about Juneteenth and the importance of Juneteenth. We don't teach about the 13th Amendment, the Proclamation, Emancipation Proclamation. We don't teach about a lot of things that happen in history. What we teach about is the I Had a Dream speech, and we teach Black history once a month on the shortest month of the year. This is what we teach. So I encourage change to continue. But the same energy you have now is the same energy I want to see a year, 2-3 years from now. And I'm talking about major corporations who are speaking up that we spend millions of our dollars every single year to support. Now we need something refund on that. We deposit our money into your account. Now it's time that we get something back. So what we need you to do is speak up, stand up, the same way you support these people, these officials in the government who are in position to make change. Now we're asking you to put pressure on them. If you truly feel that Black Lives Matter, if you truly feel that it needs to be an end to racism, equality, that we should be equal to every other counterpart in this world, then truly here's the time for your voice to be spoken. Here's your actions now are going to speak louder than your words. Prove it by pushing for legislation that's going to push us to be equal, to us to get opportunities of freedom in this country. Let's prove it by supporting us every single day, supporting our growth, that our children can finally grow without fear. So we don't constantly have the conversation with our children about how to act and how to protect themselves when they're going out. So women don't have to worry about their husband going to the store being murdered. So many Black women don't have to worry about disappearing or going to hospitals and being mistreated or not listened to. It's time for us to change. We get that you're removing Aunt Jemima off the cereal bottles or Uncle Ben off the boxes. Well, it's time should have been done. These are things that should have been changed. But I get it. Sometimes it takes time for people to wake up to recognize, and I get that now people's eyes are finally being opened to see the past injustices, the egregiousness that was committed in this earth. But my question is not just to focus and sit here and hinder on the past, but what are we going to do about the future? What are we going to do about the present and the future? Now's the time that we hold you to the stand. Now we hold your feet to the fire to make true changes. Let's remove all these statues, all this negativity of support of racist actions, racist people, and let's start supporting legislation that's going to support us becoming equal, becoming protected, becoming safe. If you say there's good police officers out here, then prove it by creating legislation that protects good police officers who are going to speak out and oust the bad police officers. If you're truly talking about reform, that's the reform we need in the police department. You're talking about defunding the police department. We get that the police department is needed, but we also get that we need a police department who's dedicated to protecting the communities that they serve. So if you want to do that, create legislation that protects the police officers who want to speak up and speak out about the police officers who are committing these crimes. Hold them accountable. Instead of keep coming up with these charges for police officers, let's get them convicted so these bad officers know that it's no longer okay for you to kill unarmed Black people. Here's the time for you to really support change if you really feel it. Here's the time for us to recognize our past. As we celebrate Juneteenth, we have to understand who we are, where we come from, and where we can go. That we're not held in bondage by the stereotypes created of us, or what anybody think of us. This is a conversation I have with my children all the time, even with myself. That's not what people call you, it's what you choose to answer to. And just because some people see you as Uncle Ben on the rice box or Aunt Jemima on the syrup bottle, it don't mean you're that person. Because something was your history, don't mean it has to be your present. Just because somebody took something from you, don't mean you can't take it back. We've taken back our freedom. We took back our freedom. But there's so much more we need to take back. We need to take back our equality. to know not only they know, but we know we're equal. We're not 3/5 of a human being. We're a full human being. And we're not going to be okay with that anymore. It's time for us to stand up. Stand in our place. Know who we are. Know our rights. Fight for legislation that's going to support, protect us, our now generation, and our future generation. The time has come where we're not going to settle for crumbs no more. We want a full loaf of bread. I want to thank you for joining me for another episode of the Past to Present podcast. I almost said something else. I had to catch myself. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Past to Present podcast. I want to thank you. Remember to comment, like, share, subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you as we celebrate Juneteenth, understand the history of Juneteenth, understand the history and the independence of Black people. Celebrate your heritage. Celebrate your freedom. For all the people who are speaking up about equality, I pray that you continue. And I ask you to continue on your journey speaking up about equality for everybody who's standing up for social change, for equality of all people, equality for Black people. I also ask big businesses to finally speak up for legislation to change so that we feel free, that we feel protected in our own country, in our own homes. And until next time I see you people, I only got one thing left to say, y'all. Stay tuned. Peace.